No, guys, this is not some kind of fever dream. This is reality. And let me go into the patch notes with you guys here and tell you exactly what they changed and why they changed it. Because at first glance, some of these changes do not make much sense. But the whole changes, all of these changes, are basically made due to the chain reaction that is going to be happening from heavily nerfing Revelation. So that's right. Let's go first about the thing that is most important for the entire patch and really dictated the entire patch is the Revelation heavily nerfed by 30% damage in PvP. 30% damage in PvP reduced, and they made it the way that it is still as strong in PvE. So on that note, thank you devs, we appreciate that. So why does everything have to do with Revelation? Why does a Holden buff have to do with Revelation, you might think? Shouldn't he be nerfed considering Revelation got nerfed so hard? So why does Holden get a buff? First up, like I said, Revelation gets heavily nerfed, making tank down a lot stronger now, and Tiamat specifically. Therefore, you need answers into Tiamat. An answer would be nerfing Bloodbath. Now they decided to go with a different route. They were like, okay, we have to buff the answers into Tiamat, specifically Rahu, right here. Rahu, in my opinion, is gonna be mostly buffed due to Tiamat and due to the long matches and him being a strong answer into Tiamat. And as you can see, his buff has been a very significant one. Not only increasing his damage multiplier here at around 10% more damage per hit with his S1, which is his main damage output, but also increasing the chance to inflict defense down to 80%, which is insane, by the way. 80% is insane. And then Rahu first grants all allies damage to 400% of his defense instead of 360%. So they heavily increase his scalings and they heavily increase his defense down chance to really try and go for the kill, for the takedown on the Tiamat. With that, Rahu just jumps up in terms of priority, in terms of drafts and everything by a large margin. And then they're like, well, Rahu is in disgustingly strong with that. How about we buff Rahu's answer, Holton? That's the only way I can explain it to you guys. That's the only reason why I can explain why Holton would ever get a buff. It is simply because Rahu got a buff, and Holton is the Rahu answer, and Rahu is the Tiamat answer. Sounds wild, but that's how it is. Because now he deals more damage on his S1, has a higher chance to inflict defense down, and on top of that has a higher chance on getting counters. So hold up, how much counter does my Rahu have now? 7 times 2 is 14%. 84%, love that, love that. And increasing the final damage even more as well. So Rahu getting buffed due to that, right? Rahu getting buffed due to that. So now we went over the Holton. Now we went over the Rahu and Holton buffs. And now let's go into the rest of the buffs that I think are not that much out of the ordinary in terms of the power level these units have been in previously. So first up, Hellkit has gotten a buff. Now Hellkit, in my opinion, we will have to see how that buff affects him. I think he's probably still going to be a unit you will draft as last pick or as a 4-5 pick if you draft him. Problem is, it's so expensive to build up units that by the time we have our Hellkit built up, it's gonna take a while as there's so many other units that you still kind of want to prioritize, right? But Hellkit, if you have him built, you still want to late pick him, otherwise your opponent just takes strippers and he's useless. And otherwise your opponent goes for cleave, he's useless. So here's the things they changed. I would have liked it differently, but maybe the ideas that I would have had would be just broken. First up, my idea would be either to make his shield undispellable. So, you know, it's his personal shield, it's his personal buff, undispellable. So you're not gonna get controlled. But I can see that being broken. So instead, make him a HP scaling unit. That could have also been something to make it easier for you to build him. Because as of now, the way you want to build Hellkit is you want him to be fast, you want him to be having a lot of attack, but you also want him to survive, and you want him to not get controlled. So you kind of want him on immunity, but at the same time you kind of want him to be fast. There's a lot of nuance to Hellkit and trying to build him. And this here gives him not only a lot more speed, which is very nice, it also gives him a lot more shield, which makes it harder for your opponent to cleave through the shield. Because previously, it wasn't only that you can just strip his shield and be like, yeah, buddy, sure, nice try, but your shield is gone. You know, your entire kit is gone. Now you can still do that, but previously you were easily able to just cleave through a Hellkit shield with some DPSs without a problem. Now he has a bigger shield. A lot of the AoE damage has been nerfed outside of the heavy DPS units that are supposed to be DPS units, thanks to the Revelation nerf. And he's getting a buff. Now, I don't think it's gonna make him meta. I think he's gonna be a counter pick, a late pick after this buff. But if you haven't built, you might be more viable now in niche scenarios. It's just gonna be, like I said, a late pick that you're gonna pick in RTA. Next up, Chloros, and that buff is awful. I tested Chloros just yesterday or just the weekend on the not Summit Arena, on the Fearless Arena. So I was able, you know, I like to test stuff in the Fearless Arena so I don't lose any ranking. And I built up my Chloros with a Bloodbath, because the only way you're gonna make your Chloros survive long enough for him to actually get multiple ultimates out is gonna be with Bloodbath, right? So I built him with Bloodbath, and deals 480% damage to a single enemy and applies Doomstall. Each time Doom's research is used, so each time his ult is procced, the final damage is increased by 35% now instead of 25%. So he only needs 3 ults to get the max out of his ultimate instead of 4 ults. Up to a max, as you can see, of 105 instead of 100%. Honestly, with the Bloodbath build, what I can tell you from that is bro did 0 damage. Bro did 0 damage. And 5% more damage doesn't matter. I played him there in the Fearless Arena with the Bloodbath build. And you have a lot of things that you need to build around your Chloros, and a lot of things on your opponent's side that need to line up for you to be able to drop a Chloros in there, and for him to still hitting like a wet noodle makes it just not justifiable to build him up. You much rather have a Ditting on full damage and trying to one-tap your opponent, overwhelm your opponent with full DPSs all around the board, than trying to use Chloros out here. But yeah, kind of needs a defense break to be able to hit the damage that you would like to see. Then, because without the defense break, bro is not gonna get the job done. Then we have Rahu, we talked about. Rilu getting a juicy buff as well. So her S2 now, instead of getting 0.6% bonus damage based on the enemy's HP lost, it's 1% conversion. So this is nice. And then her ultimate deals 3 hits of 200% instead of 180. That is over 10% increase in terms of her ult damage. And the first hit has a 100% chance of inflicting stun. That's very nice. And as you can see here, in terms of the AoE burst damage, she was already very high up here in terms of her burst damage. It's gonna be jumping up to a Yelly hitting 3 arrows in a row, which is significant. That said though, what you need to consider, don't get misguided in terms of RTA viability from the Rilu compared to the Messiah or the Yelly. Because while sure, theoretically she has more damage than a Yelly or a Messiah on average when she gets that buff, you have to consider that both of these mad lads here don't really need a setup. What I mean by that is Messiah ignores the defense and Yeli applies the defense down herself. So that's something that I really want you guys to consider here in that regard. Then Fushu getting her, that's something I was very confused on. Her fourth dupe gave her F accuracy, which she can't really use. So now it's giving her F rest, which is nice. Then Oboro getting the bleed, basically the bleeding debuff is getting to 100% of the applier's attack. So 100% of the applier's attack is gonna be inflicted upon your opponent by inflicting bleed on your opponent. Not sure if that's gonna be enough. I need to check, see how good that really is. I don't think it's that good. I think it's very niche, and I think it's more gonna be good for some future bleed units than Oboro, because Oboro, I think, being a single target unit, is just not gonna cut it. Then Gray, so Gray deals his normal 220% damage, but on a crit, instead of 120, he gets 160 bonus damage, which is nice. In terms of his DPS, if we take a look at here, Gray is already quite on a decent spot, considering the fact that he applies the defense break on the opponents as well. You need to consider that. Gray can also apply the defense break on your opponents. And then he has very low cooldowns. And he's gonna have quite some value as long as your opponents do not have too many cleanses. Or as long as you have your team's speed tuning immaculate, right? That's something you need to consider in terms of the defense break. But makes it a viable option in some kind of cases, in some kind of drafts, as he might also have some value with taking care of a Rahu, thanks to his defense break just shredding his damage by a large margin and dealing more damage while having very low cooldowns on his skills. Then Red Chiaki basically just increases her stacks of Origami Guardian from 2 to 3, so she can have 3 stacks that will reduce the target's damage taken against the heavy hits she applies Chiaki. Then we have Rin. So this is the red Rin, the defense scaling defender Rin. Her shield is increased to 300%, but the big thing is this one. Cooldown of the skill is reduced from 4 to 3 turns. We don't have any 3-turn shields like that. That right here seems to me a very, very valuable, because we don't really have that many shields applied to us. Only one who has a 3-turn is also Veronica, but that needs Latice. You much rather have this actually. And I think her together with a Holden in combination have some quite strong viability, as she applies the defense up for the Holden to just rip it, you know, to just rip it. And applies the shield, big shield, onto your entire team. Very strong in my opinion, has a lot of value here, and with the 3 turns definitely something to consider. Then we have Tsutomu, who's previously been quite useless. Now he has a significant buff on his S2's damage output, each hit having an 80% chance to steal a buff from the target. And same can be said for his S3 damage output, is significantly buffed here from 240 to 280% of 2 hits of that. But I don't think that's gonna be enough, as he's just hitting single target, and I don't think he's gonna be able to kill even with these buffs a unit in one go. Then Marvel getting his ult cooldown reduced to 4 turns, previously 5 turns. Don't think that's gonna change him at all, since you are going to use a Codex of Magic no matter what on him. And in an extended fight, in a long-term fight, Marvel is just not as good as most of the other options that you can go for. Then we have Mizuki Makoto. Now I have seen some players use her, but at the same time I haven't really had any issue if I ever played against her. She will have increased speed, slightly increased speed. Her defense scaling on her S1 is also getting increased. And then her S2 deals 3 hits of 120, so also a little increase on that note. Then her S3 also getting another increase. This is actually quite a significant increase on her S3. And also each hit having a 60% chance to inflict defense down for 2 turns. So the S3 definitely is quite significant on that note. Then last but not least, in terms of the units, we have Researcher number 41, increases turn meter by 25%. She's still going to be useless for RTA in the end game, simply because her speed is just not high enough. Then we have the rare Kochi, and the rare Kochi, apparently, I just looked it up, I was kind of confused on the turn meter, and apparently he does already do 50% turn meter push, but here, I just looked it up, it's a 35% turn meter pushback, so I'm not very sure on that note, I'll be honest here. I'm very, very confused on that note, very confused. But definitely someone to keep an eye on, I think. Because not only does Kochi decrease, knock back the turn meter of everyone by apparently 50%. Maybe we will have to see when the patch goes through if it's increased from 35 to 50, because it says it's not the turn meter that is increased to 50, it is the stun chance that is increased to 50. So Kochi might be a very viable unit considering all of these changes, and also his S2 being strong. Someone I have a very close eye on. That said, I have so many units to build. It's gonna be a rough one. And then we have Golden Lion as well, getting a buff, a much needed buff. So host final damage increased by 8% and F accuracy by 15% per stack. Maximum stacks reduced to 5 instead of 8. So it just doesn't take as long as before in terms of stacking up, but overall I still find it hard to build a Golden Lion. You could think of it on a Rahu, but on a Rahu you could also build a Codex, you could build something to prevent him from being CC'd, you can build so many other options that I still don't think Golden Lion in terms of RTA is that crazy. Then Kenai can no longer be triggered by damage from shells. On Kenai's note, let me know guys, does it apply? Does Kenai apply to units dealing damage while it's not their turn? That's something that I would love to know. For example, when they do a dual attack, or if they do a counter attack, if it still applies, because it says during the turn the first 25%. So in theory it shouldn't matter if it's their turn, but I just want to be sure. I might test it myself later as well. So this is the whole patch. It's a lot of patches, a lot of patch notes, a lot of changes. And the main thing they've done is they pushed up the value of the normal DPS units and pushed down the value of the Revelation DPS units to actually get more of the DPS units used in RTA that are supposed to be used compared to the ones that are just randomly built on DPS through Revelation. And the whole patch is built around the whole chain reaction that the Revelation would have in terms of Tiamat strength and tanking down strength, and just ramping up the damage that most of these DPS can do without Revelation. So Tiamat isn't just gonna be taking over. This is the whole reason they did all of these buffs. Let me know what you guys think. I still think the Holden buff is very, very wild. I'm not too sure about that, honestly. Not too sure about why Bro is getting buffed. I think even against the buffed Rahu, he would still be fine. And also the Chloros. I think Chloros needs more. Chloros just needs more than that. Hell Kit is nice to have, but still gonna be a late pick. Mainly the Rahu, I think, got a change. The Holden got even more broken than he already is. I think while the Holden buff is kinda weird, the rest of it I can see very much be in line of the chain reaction that happens from nerfing Revelation by 30%. You definitely need more damage in another kind of way. Not that everyone just drops the Tiamat on 3 and puts in 3 healers. I don't think that's how it should be played. On that note, I'm Ronnie. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'm out. Peace!